Well, happy July, Hawkeye Nation. It's July 1st, 2024. I'm your host, Corey Bratta, here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. It's been a while since we've done one of these. So if I'm a little bit off my game, that's why. But I'm happy to be here. And as the banner that I displayed here at the beginning indicates, less than 2 months away from Iowa football. Of course, that's not what we're limited to this evening. It's been a busy off season. It seems like off seasons aren't really off seasons anymore because you are slammed with recruiting, slammed with the transfer portal. This year has been unprecedented for basketball fans because many Iowa fans have been keeping up with Caitlin Clark in the WNBA and the like. So what a few months it's been. And we are, again, less than 2 months away from the return of Iowa football. Big Ten Media Days is this week, or excuse me, not this week, this month. So it's going to be here before you know it. This, of course, if you're new to the platform, this is a fan-driven show. Hawkeye Hangout is. There's multiple ways you can interact. First of all, if you're watching this on YouTube, we have, of course, podcast everything for on-demand listening. But if you're watching live on YouTube, there is a chat function, and we'll try to get to the comments in the chat. If you have a question or a comment, either way, you can throw it up there in the live chat. There's also a phone line to call. The number is on the bottom of the screen, 515-635-1601. 515-635-1601. You can also join the show by a unique way, and that is by StreamYard. StreamYard is the service that we use here from the Hawkeye of the Storm to video chat, and you have one video to call via StreamYard. But again, all of these are different ways to interact with the show this evening during another episode of Hawkeye Hangout as we count down the days to the return of Hawkeye sports. We've already got a couple of people that want to chat. So before we get to those individuals, to the 46 that are on YouTube watching, thank you for being here. I know I gave our premium members kind of a heads up on YouTube. Was it yesterday? But I really did not do a great job of promoting today. I knew I wanted to do a show before a very busy weekend for a lot of people here this coming weekend. And with the calendar turning to July, I just thought it was a perfect time to do it on July 1st. So please do me a favor if you could. Please, first of all, hit that like button. It's the little thumbs up below the video stream. Just doing that helps us in the algorithm. Also, share out the show on social media. If you're not the only one in your family or friend zone that likes to talk Hawkeye sports, likely there's someone else that will enjoy this show. Please help them to interact by telling them about it, or at least sharing it out on Instagram, Facebook, other social media, whether it be Snapchat, TikTok. I'm not up to speed on some of the new age social media networks. I guess I probably should be. But I am on Twitter, or now they call it X, Instagram, and Facebook. So all those are great methods, and you can follow us on all those platforms as well. Be sure to subscribe to if you're a Hawkeye fan, because more content on the way, not just live content, but on-demand content. So what are we talking about this evening? Well, like I said earlier, this is a fan-driven show. So normally we have someone here like a Coach Don Patterson or a Kasheen Alexander, or even a Gary Close, or another special guest. I wanted to make this show about you as the fan. What do you want to talk about? What's on your mind, Hawkeye related? It's been so long since we've had one of these open-ended shows. The last Hawkeye Hangout show I hosted was following the Lisa Bluter retirement news. And not that you're not welcome to comment on other things when we have a breaking news subject, but there's been a lot going on. So you tell me what you want to talk about. What's on your mind? What are your concerns heading into Iowa football, Iowa basketball, Iowa women's basketball? What are you excited about? Some of the big storylines, if you've been living in a hole over the last few months. We start with women's basketball. We know Randy Henderson and Sean Sullivan have been hired to the Iowa women's basketball staff. If you missed my dialogue on those two hires, check out the latest edition of Brada's Branded Thoughts. That's a podcast here from the Hawkeye of the Storm on this platform. Really insightful interview with Xavier Williams also on that show. But I kind of ran through my thoughts just on the heels of that news. I don't know Sean Sullivan or Randy Henderson personally, but certainly both of those individuals have tremendous resumes. You can see why. It's easy to see why Jan Jensen decided to add them to the full-time staff. So check that out. But certainly that's news. Also, as I mentioned at the outset, we are less than 2 months away from Hawkeye football. Big Ten Media Days is this month. Peyton Sandfort returns to Iowa women's basketball. The Hawkeyes also have added Drew Thelwell and Seydou Traore during the transfer portal window. So that's exciting. Men's basketball looks to return to the NCAA tournament following an NIT run. I shouldn't even call it a run. NIT berth this past season. Also for women's basketball, Villanova transfer Lucy Olson has arrived on campus. She's begun workouts with the Iowa women's basketball team. I've seen some social media posts from Lucy and the team. It seems like they're getting acquainted well during this offseason. So that's positive news. And Iowa football 2025 recruiting class now up to 12 commitments following a big June official visit weekend. Hopefully not done. Several other big names to watch for. One being the youngest of the Epinesa siblings, who is a 5-star. Iowa, of course, hopes to get a commitment out of him. It sounds like we're going to get a decision from Mr. Epinesa in the coming weeks. Also, we're going to get a decision, I think, in the next month and a half from the number one kicker in the country, who was on campus here a couple of weeks ago. And don't forget about a highly touted receiver and a couple other guys that certainly are still in play for Iowa and their 2025 recruiting class. Of course, a couple other honorable mentions. Caitlin Clark continuing to set records and draw eyeballs in the WNBA, both because of her play and because of what's happening with the media, the dialogue, the stuff with Angel Reese, the stuff with people like Kennedy Carter. Whether you like it or not, it's drawing more eyeballs to the game and to her. Iowa football adds Brendan Sullivan and Jacob Gill, kind of poaching Northwestern in a sense. I think both those guys have a chance to be big impact guys this coming season. We know the unfortunate news recently that Caleb Brown, Iowa receiver, had been arrested for OWI. We're still awaiting official announcement from Iowa as it relates to time missed. Expect him to miss at least one game. I would expect it to remain at one game unless there's something else that comes forward as it relates to details with that incident. Apparently, according to the police, his car was a little banged up when they found him suffering from intoxication. And then also Pat Anger. How about a shout out to the former All-American linebacker from Bettendorf? He has been added to Iowa football, but in a different role up in the booth with Gary Dolphin. He will replace Ed Podolak in 2024, calling football games for Hawkeye Athletics and Learfield Sports. So that list of headlines and newsy items over the past few months, certainly not all inclusive. If you have something else you want to chat about, certainly anything goes. Well, I shouldn't say anything goes. The moment I say that, some weird caller comes in. Let's hope we don't have one on the line right now. But anyways, within reason, anything goes as it relates to Hawkeye athletics. Let's go to our first caller of the day. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
McNamara makes me so horny.
Okay, well, there you go. There's your weird caller, folks. We're right back at that. Guy's been waiting how many months? That guy's been waiting how many months for a live show so he can be, I didn't even understand what he said, by the way, but I can tell it's the same idiot that called last year and the year before that. So that we're off on the right foot, folks. So we've got the trolls are out at 8 p.m. on a Monday on the 1st of July. So 8 p.m. is a little late, James, for our trolls not to be tucked in by their mommies for bed. So anyways, welcome to the show, James. Appreciate you being here. James, are you with us? James, if you're speaking, I cannot hear you. Let's go back to our phone line. See if we can get a real caller here. A real caller? Thank you for calling Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
It's your friend, Hawkeye Howard.
Thank goodness, Hawkeye Howard. How you doing, buddy? How are you?
I'm all right. Been a while, buddy.
It has been. It has been. How about the off season? How's the off season treating you down in Springfield, Missouri?
It's hot. Oh gosh, it's hot. Hot. So
it's been a hot one.
Been good. It's been good. So I wanted to call in and I've been going through the schedule, and I wanted to ask you to have a conversation.
Sure.
Why does it seem like the last 3 years, like we could go back 3 years, we played Ohio State at Ohio State. Wasn't it supposed to like home and home? And I'm thinking well, we all know Ohio State's getting the better of everybody. And they're getting their way with everything. I just feel because the last time they came to our house, we kind of like mopped the floor with them. And so that's one thing I wanted to have a conversation about. I mean,
the last time Iowa came to their house, they mopped the floor with Iowa. Right? I mean,
true.
Yeah.
True. Well, see, they need to come here to Iowa so we can mop the floor again.
Okay.
So I mean, dust is building up.
I don't mean to. I don't mean to be a sad realist here. 10 minutes into the show, but I don't think there's going to be any floor mopping done by Iowa in the shoe this year when they go to Columbus. Now, as it relates to the schedule, Hawkeye Howard, as it relates to the schedule, let me get my my picture off of here so we can just look at the schedule. I mean, honestly, we've talked about this, and if you watch, I know you tune in every now and then for the show on Tuesdays with Mark Rogers. We've talked about the schedule. Like, it shapes up very nicely for Iowa to make a run this year. Now, Ohio State is the odds-on favorite right now to win this conference. I mean, they return the most production. As far as talent ratings, they're going to be right there, as they always are. But for Iowa to avoid the other four, like of the top 5 teams, Iowa basically gets one of those teams, and that's Ohio State on the road. You don't play Michigan. You don't play Penn State. You don't play Oregon. You don't play, let's see, who am I missing? USC. I think at UCLA, if you're going to take a team out west, you're going to get a team in UCLA that's, just hired a new coach and a guy who doesn't have any real high major head coaching experience. So, that's not going to be an easy trip to Pasadena, but that's one I'm willing to take on. And then you get a Washington team coming to Kinnick, coming off a national championship game run. However, they lost everything. Kalen DeBoer goes to Alabama.
Yeah.
Michael Penix
Total
goes to
rebuilding.
the draft. They're in a rebuild. So, yeah, I mean, the schedule shapes up. Who did I see earlier this week? Hawkeye Howard actually predicted Iowa as, I think, the 10th team in the college football playoff. Now, I mean, anybody could throw that out right now, but I don't think it's inconceivable to think that Iowa can go 10-2 with this schedule. And if they go 10-2 with this schedule, they are going to be in the conversation with the playoff expansion to 12.
Now, I would love to be able to, with this new, I don't know what's going to happen with all this new offense or anything. I just don't know.
Well,
But
yeah,
I
we
pray,
don't know.
I
Yeah.
pray we go in there and put them, and put them on notice. We may lose, but I would like us to put them on notice, make them sweat a little bit. So
Who's Iowa putting on notice?
Ohio State.
Well, I mean,
Ohio
yeah,
State.
if they could go on the road and compete in that game, I'm not saying that they're going to get blown out, but one of the toughest places to play. Not only probably against the favorites in this conference, one of the favorites to be in the national title game this year. So, yeah, I mean, I'm assuming I'm talking 10-2, and I'm assuming that Iowa's going to lose that game. If somehow Iowa doesn't, I guess, yeah, then we're really going to be talking about potentially something special. But until that happens, don't quote me on that, because I don't see Iowa going. I'm not saying Iowa can't compete, but I don't see Iowa being able to go there and win.
It'd sure be nice. We've come close a few times.
Well, when's
but
the last time
another thing.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say they haven't really.
Well, I was thinking
they haven't really come close in Ohio State for a while. 2013,
not for a while.
2013, they went there.
Probably,
and I believe it was 2013, 13 or 14. They
went
2015.
There. 2015, we went there with a tie ball game.
No,
it wasn't 2015. No. It was
20. It was.
I think it was 09 or 10.
Yeah, well, in 2013/14, one of those 2 years, they went there with Jake Rudock and Jake Doozy, and Doozy had a big wheel route down the sidelines,
that's right.
and so they have went there and competed, but it's been a while.
You still there?
Yep, I got you.
Okay. Another thing I would real quick here. I don't want to take everybody's time, and I've been thinking ever since the Minnesota game of last year. I've been thinking how we could stop all this, these ridiculous calls by these referees.
Okay. You got an idea?
Maybe. Yeah. I'm gonna. We can rename it. I mean, a referee czar. I mean, if a questionable play is made on the field like it was, we can call into this referee czar, and he can make a final decision. It could be with the Big Ten, or it could be with NCAA. I mean, he could be on site, or he could be off site. It'd be an easy fix, but that's just me.
So you're talking about during a game having somebody that
yes.
Who's calling into this czar?
Well, let's say basically, okay. So for example, that play that happened against Michigan, Minnesota. Okay, and if Kirk Ferentz didn't like it, he could throw his red card, challenge it to the referee czar, and then he can come back and say that play stands or doesn't stand. He can actually override the the referees on the field.
So you're saying you can challenge the unsuccessful challenge, basically. It's like
right.
taking up a ruling with the Supreme Court, right? Keep going to the higher courts. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
That type of a concept.
Yeah, because we got the shaft on that, and this way, because this referee is not the first time he's done this. And if you remember back years ago, maybe you won't, there was an extra play against Texas Tech with whether I think it's Middle Michigan or something. Well, guess who was the referee? Him. And so this is not the first time that referee did that, but that's been a long time. So
plus he went to I think you know what the naysayers would say to that commentary, Howard, is they'd say, so you're telling me you want to slow the game down even more. That's what they would say. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying the argument for not expanding the challenge system more than what we have is the game is slowed down so much already by advertising, all these media timeouts, and then they go to the monitors for everything. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. But then what happens when the czar, like you're telling me the czar is not going to make people upset at some point? Whoever that head official is going to make some team fan base upset, and that fan base is going to feel like that czar is out to get them. So it's hard to please everybody in that profession.
I know it was just a thought. I was but all right. Well, I won't keep you anymore. So I'm still trying to find a straight jacket for Levi. So after he loses this year, he won't go off the deep end. So
right, let me know.
So all right. Well,
thank you, sir.
You have a nice day.
Thanks, Howard. Appreciate it. Looking for a straight jacket for our friend Levi over at Wide Right and Natty Light. If you missed the show, it's always a fun time when Mark Rogers gets Levi Stevenson on for a battle between him and I. It's all love, as I always tell him, but it is entertaining. So if people miss that, definitely go over to Iowa Football at the Voice of College Football and do that. Tony says, "Hey Corey, you mentioned in the past an upgraded studio. Is that done now?" Not totally. You do see some different lighting. I saw T. Hink says you got a new camera. Yes, new camera here. A couple of adjustments with lighting. You probably noticed that. And you might notice more here down the pipeline. Things are a process here. So little by little continue to make some adjustments. Let's go back to our call-in line. Thank you for calling Hawkeye Howard. Man, I do that whenever he calls in. Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. He's got to change his name. Who's on the line?
Hi, it's Kyle Thompson.
Hey, Kyle. How are you?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing all right, man. It's July 1st. It's about to get real busy. But I got a few more weeks until that happens.
I'm going to be very busy at work, too. Just a bunch of training stuff. Not looking forward to it, but I have to deal with it.
That's all we can do.
2 months away from the season. Looking for, hopefully, for some excitement this year, and especially on the offensive side. It doesn't have to be, like, very, very, like, top. And just try to make it good enough to compete with the other teams.
Yeah. So what's the offense going to look like in your opinion, Kyle?
A little bit of Kirk's offense and Lester's offense. That's what I believe in.
Okay. That's a fair assumption. Yeah, a little bit of both.
I mean, I wasn't, to be honest, when Lester got hired, I wasn't thrilled because I was hoping the Kevin Johns guy, but just Kirk went the safe hire. I mean, it took me a few days just to calm down and say he's got to give him a fair chance, and he's more qualified than Brian is.
He's definitely more qualified than Brian. Absolutely. I really, I'll agree with you to an extent on one thing, Kyle. When the news initially dropped, I was someone who was very skeptical, and not that I'm not still skeptical. I still have to see it to believe it. But I have more confidence, I think, than a lot of people that you're going to see a significant difference between the last 6-7 years and what you see this year. There will be the people out there that say, hey, you've been watching the Kirk Ferentz offense for however long now. It's not going to change. I rely on people like Coach Patterson, and Coach Patterson has been pretty bullish on the idea that Kirk Ferentz was not calling plays on game day. Now, certainly his, overall feelings on how the game should be played and his mottos, etc., the principles of the game, so to speak, yeah, that's going to remain constant. But as it relates to play calling, Brian was in charge, supposed to be working with quarterbacks one-on-one as the quarterback's coach. Like those things, you're going to get such an upgrade there. And even if you're not able to recruit any better in the long term, I think you're going to see a significant bump. I'll be surprised if we don't see a significant bump in production right off the bat. Now, does that mean Iowa goes from 133 in the country in total offense to, top 75? I'm not saying that, but I mean, like, I don't know that people realize how much of a difference going from 133 in total offense to 110 would make, assuming the defense stays really good, which we expect it to. They bring so much back, with the exception being Cooper DeJean and a couple guys up front. So I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I'm not going to act like I will. I mean, or I do. I think, there have been things written, certainly what Tim has said to the media regarding pre-snap motion, keeping the defense on its heels. Just listening to him talk about quarterback play as a former quarterback himself, knowing what he's done with wide receivers at pass stops, especially what he did at Western Michigan, gives me confidence. I think you're going to see a significant jump right away, regardless of who's on the field, regardless of talent level. And I'll be anxious to see what he can get out of guys like Caleb Brown. Now, it's unfortunate Brown's going to be out game one, likely out game one, but it will be so intriguing to see what he can get out of those guys that Brian couldn't get anything out of. That's what I'm going to be watching for. They need to win those first 3 games. They want a chance at the playoff. I think all 3 of those are must wins, but it will be fascinating to see how much of a bump you're going to get. I will be shocked if we enter October and Iowa's, bottom 5 in the country in total offense. That will really surprise me.
Yeah, if you are bottom 5, then you gotta at a time consider like moving in a different direction. Like not trying to say Kirk's a bad man, but just try to look for a different leader.
There will be people spouting off about exactly that, Kyle, if that's the case. And I mean, I think people need to be patient. This is a new guy coming in, implementing somewhat of a new system. I'm not saying I'm not predicting some, rocket-like trajectory with the offense. However, you just can't get much worse than, I don't know that you can get worse, frankly. I mean, mathematically, from a ranking standpoint, they can't get worse. They can't get worse. You can't get it worse than the dead last in the FBS. But I just think, they didn't lose a ton. They didn't lose their quarterback. They lost their quarterback, but that's probably a good thing, with all due respect to Deacon Hill. You hope you're going to get back a healthy Cade McNamara. You get a guy in Brendan Sullivan who's starting Big Ten experience. You get basically all your receivers back, minus Nico Ragaini. You get one of your tight ends back in Luke Lachey, who I think has a chance to be a top 5 overall tight end in the country this year. They got plenty of returning production on the offensive side as well. It's not like they were decimated by the portal. And that's good, because sometimes you do get decimated by the portal when you have a coaching change. That's not what happened when Brian left. Guys did not flock to the portal. So I think you're going to see, I'll be very surprised if you see bottom of the barrel in late September.
Yeah, and Lester's going to have to use those guys very wisely, use them as their abilities and their skills to make the offense better. And the last thing I want to add is I think Kirk made the hires based on Lester's experience as a OC and as a head coach.
Yeah. I mean, it helps, right? It helps having different levels of coaching experience. Hey, I think it helped having him run to the NFL and help with the Packers for a year. I know he wasn't coordinating an offense there, but it's been widely documented the boost that gave to Tim Lester, just from a strategy standpoint. I think that's going to be the big thing. Learning with that Shanahan system, getting a perspective from the defensive side of what an offense is doing. That's kind of what his job in Green Bay was all about. So, yeah, he's got experience pretty much. I shouldn't say pretty much every level. He hasn't coached. He has not been in the NFL as a coordinator or head coach, certainly, but he's been through the gamut, and he's been humbled by, losing his job at Western Michigan, fairly or unfairly. He was tasked with a heavy duty there because PJ Fleck had tons of success at Western Michigan. That's why he got the Minnesota job. And, Tim Lester put together some good offenses. The defenses weren't as good. Team success suffered. But he's experienced. He's got qualifications that Brian did not have, obviously. So there's reason to be plenty excited as we head into August.
Yeah, it's a whole new year. That's all I got. Have a good 4th of July and go Hawks.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate the call, sir. Good stuff from Kyle. I appreciate him bringing up the variety of subjects. Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see what the product looks like, obviously, right? I mean, I could sit here for an hour and a half and just talk about how excited I am to see what this offense looks like with Tim Lester and a lot of the guys they had last year. Hopefully a healthy Cade McNamara. But if not, we assume we have a healthy guy with Big Ten experience, not Deacon Hill or Spencer Petras. You have a guy in Brendan Sullivan who held his own during a difficult time. Remember, Northwestern was going through a head coaching change with Pat Fitzgerald leaving. And Jacob Gill didn't produce a lot at Northwestern, but I've heard good things about him this summer. Heard really good things about Jacob Gill. So those are always positives. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk football. Like I say, I'm here to talk everything. People want to talk about Caitlin Clark or Seydou Traore or Pat Anger, we can do that. But, man, it just feels like football's around the corner. And the offseason flies by. It didn't used to for me. It used to just slowly eke by. But now it's like, I think it's easy just as you get older, you're like, man, I enjoy having some down periods as it relates to sports. And if people know me and they know the show, they know I'm a big Mavs fan. Mavs made the NBA Finals, fell short of a championship. But, pair that with the Iowa women's basketball going to another national championship. Had a lot of sports to watch over the past year. I'm thankful for that, but it's nice to have a bit of a hiatus. So anyways, but football is something I am absolutely looking forward to. All right, well, it looks like we've got James back on the line. We're going to take one quick break here, and we'll get back to our phone line. The phone line is 515-635-1601. We'll get James his call. Hopefully he's coming in loud and clear this time. We'll be back. More Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm after this. Let me introduce you to one of the proud supporters of From the Hawkeye of the Storm, Iowa floor covering down in Bondurant. Now, for the last year and a half, you've heard me talk about this great company in the heart of central Iowa. They've got their tough core, click together, 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring, great for you DIYers out there. But even if you're just a contractor or you need a different type of flooring, they've got you covered, whether it be tile showers, carpet. Give Iowa Floor Covering a chance to serve you better and serve your flooring needs. Visit them online at iowafloorcovering.com. That's iowafloorcovering.com, or you can give them a call at 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. Thank you to Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant. Appreciate Iowa Floor Covering. Boy, Tyler, Ryan, and those guys mean a lot to this show. They've been supporting the show. And based on conversations I've had with Tyler here recently, they have been very busy serving people in not only central Iowa, but across the state. Down in Bondurant, if you've not checked out their products, iowafloorcovering.com. And here's the thing, folks, like, even if you're not, seems simple enough, and it could be easy to just kind of overlook the importance or the value of doing this. But if you appreciate this show, this show, the lifeblood of this show is post-game coverage. But our sponsors got, people like Tyler, Ryan, and the guys down at Iowa Floor Covering, Randy over at Under the Kitchen. Those are the people that help the show continue during the off season and not go into a hibernation like some sort of a sloth bear. So please show them some appreciation, whether you're buying flooring or not. Even give them a call. Just say, hey, thank you for sponsoring the show over From the Hawkeye of the Storm. That would mean a lot to me if you do that. All right. So again, maybe I can throw the number back up there. 515-379-7000. You see that there at the bottom of your screen. 515-379-7000. Give them a call and tell them, hey, thank you for supporting my favorite show. Appreciate it, Ryan, Tyler, and the guys down at IFC. Let's go back to our call-in line here at Hawkeye Hangout. James, do I got you this time?
You got me? Yeah, there you go. I see me talking now.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. It's been a long time, obviously. Happy to have you back, and just happy to see you're safe. And more importantly, I know a lot of weather's hit the state, so I'm happy to see everybody is safe and well.
You as well.
But first off, with that being said, I want to talk about Tim Lester in a second. The one position he's done good at is wide receiver, right? Obviously, Corey Davis, Sky Moore. And I don't know if Corey Crooms was there when he was at Western Michigan or not, but that's another name too, right? Like, he's done good at wide receiver. He's done good at making a little bit wide receivers better than they should be at that level. And I understand that's the MAC in comparison to the Big Ten. I get that.
hold on. You can't really mention any of those guys without mentioning Dwayne Eskridge.
Yeah, Dwayne Eskridge too. I forget about him, but yeah. He's another one of those. I knew there was another one I was forgetting, but yeah, I'm saying I know that's the MAC compared to the Big Ten, but he's still done really good at wide receiver in that
No,
level.
hey, I agree with you, but when you got guys that are that small and that under recruited that end up being second round draft picks, I don't care what level you're playing at. And it's not like those guys. I mean, Sky Moore is. I mean, he's not some star in the NFL, but these scouts know what they're doing. They're not drafting guys in the second round because I guess we got fooled by their MAC numbers. No, I mean, these guys they were made into NFL ready receivers at Western Michigan. And remember, one thing I mentioned, James, you heard me say it on a recent show because I brought this up. But not only were they under recruited, these guys didn't have offers from almost anywhere coming out of high school. They were all undersized. They're all 5'9", 5'10". The other thing about it is none of those guys had the same wide receivers coach throughout their careers. Like they had a different receivers. It seemed like every year, you go back and look at those staffs at Western Michigan, the turnover at that wide receiver coaching position was extreme. So what does that tell you, James?
Tim Lester was probably the guy who was taking the charge more than.
Well, it just who knows who's. I mean, obviously the head coach is in charge, but like, what's the common denominator with all these guys really producing and developing? To me, it's the head coach who happens to also be a former quarterback and an offensive mind. Like that's so. Maybe it's going to be a bust here, but I'm excited to see what he can do at that position.
Yeah, I think that was my first thought. Like when we got him, that was the first thing that came to my head was like those names, right? Like obviously Sky Moore and Corey Davis popped in my head more than Eskridge, just because like obviously Eskridge, yes, but Sky Moore and Corey Davis kind of were the two bigger ones. I think that's something that I kind of was like drawn to. Where it's like I feel like we want Caleb Brown to be better than he was last year. Obviously, I mean everybody does, but he showed glimpses of what he could be, and I just hope Tim can build off of that. Obviously after the suspension, but. I just thought that was something that came to my mind first.
Who did you say? Who were the guys you just mentioned? You said
Corey Davis.
We're missing.
I don't know. Corey Davis was PJ Fleck, but I'm pretty sure Lester was the offensive coordinator at that time when Corey Davis was.
Okay, we're missing. Who's the guy that transferred to
Eskridge?
No. The guy that transferred to Michigan
Minnesota.
State.
Minnesota or Michigan State? I don't know who
Michigan State. Boy, I can picture his face, and now I'm drawing a blank.
I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember his name.
See if I can find it here. Yeah, he ended up getting drafted by. Is he on the Packers now? Let's see. Sky Moore's with the Chiefs.
Oh, Jaden Reed.
Jaden Reed.
Yep, I was getting there eventually.
Another one. And here's a dude who played as a true freshman. He would have never transferred to Michigan State. He would have never gotten that opportunity had it not been what he did as a freshman at Western Michigan.
Yeah, but that's interesting to see. And obviously, do you think, okay, be honest, do you think it's going to be a quarterback competition? You think Cade's the guy?
No, I think
not what you want, what you think.
Well, first of all, it's hard to comment on that without the know-it-alls on social media yelling and saying, Kirk doesn't do quarterback competitions when you have an incumbent. I'm not saying Kirk is going into the fall viewing this as an open competition. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. What I'm saying is, yes, I think it's a competition because I think Brendan Sullivan has a chance to outplay Cade McNamara this fall and at least make it difficult on Kirk to make that decision. And if Tim Lester goes to Kirk and says, hey, I think this is our guy, Kirk's going to either have to say no to Tim Lester or he's going to have to concede. So, no, I think it's a competition because I don't think Brendan Sullivan, what he's proven at a more difficult spot, Northwestern, more difficult spot than what Cade has proven, being at Michigan. I think he's got a shot to win this job.
For sure. And I also feel like Cade coming off of the 2 injuries, it might be a little bit better where it's like it is Brendan Sullivan because he's been healthier than Cade.
Yeah, absolutely could be. I mean, guy coming off 2 serious knee injuries. I do think it's fascinating the Brendan Sullivan, Jacob Gill thing. I'll be publishing one thing I haven't done yet, James, and you'll enjoy this. I'll be publishing an interview. I sat down with Jacob Gill recently to talk about his decision to come to Iowa. he is also roommates with Brennan Sullivan. So let's not forget that connection is a big part of why Jacob Gill is here. I'll be fascinated if Brennan Sullivan wins the job, what that chemistry does, how that can transfer over to Saturdays with those
For
two
sure. I
guys.
also
I
feel
think
like that.
to be a starter here, regardless of who's playing quarterback. And especially with Caleb Brown out, potentially one game, maybe a little bit more. I don't think so, but at least one game. I think Jacob Gill's got an opportunity, and it'll be fascinating because you may have a couple of guys there at the top that, wide receivers, we expect receiver to be a bigger part of the game plan in general. Quarterback play should get better with Tim. So that's going to be a fascinating pair of players to watch for.
Yeah, that was something I was gonna say too. Like, even with Kill Brown there, I feel like Jake Gill's obviously gonna get his time, his run, right? But with him out week one, that's gonna be interesting to see him and Seth Anderson and kind of how that goes. But also, I feel more not that I don't feel Jerry Bowie is ready, obviously, but Jerry Bowie's young. He's only a freshman redshirt, right? And I feel way more comfortable throwing Jacob Gill out there. And I know his numbers weren't great at Northwestern, but he's played Big Ten football. He understands what it takes to play Big Ten football, if that makes sense. And Jerry Bowie's still young, so
Well,
at least have a third guy I can trust. I feel like.
let me tell you something, and this is something that I haven't shared on the air, but I'll repeat this because it's on good authority. A few weeks ago, someone reached out to me and made the comment that this is the same source, by the way, that was it 2 years ago told me that Caden Weegan was really turning heads in practice. He had just transferred from JUCO football, and that Caden was really turning heads as it relates to his speed. Here we are now in 2024, and it looks like Caden Weegan may start week one, especially with Brown out. So that doesn't shock me, and I think he's also going to be involved with special teams. But that same source told me a few weeks ago that Jacob Gill is really turning heads in summer workouts, not necessarily due to anything other than his speed. Now, we'll see what he can do. Just because you have speed doesn't mean you can catch a football. But I tried to go back and look at Jacob Gill's track numbers in high school, and I even asked Jacob about this when I chatted with him here a couple weeks ago. I wasn't able to nail down anything definitive from junior, senior year of high school. So, the data that I could find was sort of dated. But what I was told by this source here a couple weeks ago is that he is really turning heads with his speed. And if that's the case, I know people were writing about how he looks like a slot guy. I don't think Tim Lester cares if you're 5'9" versus 6'4". Like, again, go back to the three guys we brought up earlier. If you can take the top off the defense, there's no reason to think you can't play out wide, regardless of your speed or regardless of your size. And Jacob Gill's not 5'8", 5'9". I mean, he's 5'11", 6 foot. So, maybe he'll line up in this. It sounds like the team has told, the coaches have told him they expect him to line up in the slot and out wide. But if he's got the speed to take the top off the defense, it will change things.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, we know what the defense brings back. Like you said earlier, obviously, it was a Cooper DeJean, but it helps us that Deshaun Lee played so much last year. And it got him a lot of. Obviously, you didn't want to see Cooper DeJean get hurt, but it helped that Deshaun Lee played a lot last year, kind of give him those reps, especially in Big Ten play. So when you get to that point, you don't feel as scared. You don't feel as nervous of throwing somebody out there who's never played in a Big Ten game. You're kind of like, oh, I mean, I trust Phil Parker either way, but just your first time, sometimes your first time with the bright lights on, it kind of can throw you off a little bit. He's played in those bright lights, so it's not as much of a.
Same thing with John Nestor. I mean, he doesn't
Yeah.
have the level of experience, but his involvement in special teams. I'll be anxious to see what Devin Hilson's involvement is with the defense this year. But if those guys can come along, you're not saying you're going to get the same production as a gunner, as a special teams returner like you got from Cooper DeJean, but like you said, Deshaun Lee, Jamari Harris, John Nestor. Am I missing somebody in there? TJ Hall, certainly. Then you're looking at, hey, we kind of pick up where we left off. Safety should be, you got one guy who's an old man now in Quinn Schulte and another guy who's, boy, you would hope that Xavier Wampa, I've heard good things about him this summer as well. It sounds like he's one of the more difficult players to quarterback against. So, yeah, I mean, defense should be loaded. We've talked about it. I think the one question mark for the defense is up front and depth up, of that defensive line. I don't know if they can go 7 or 8 deep like they have in the past, and hopefully that will change. And summer is for the big men at times. So So that's something to watch for. But I agree, and linebacker is as strong as it's ever been.
Yeah, for sure. One more thing before I get off, at least on the football side, is, and I'm surprised. I'm as surprised as you are at this that none of the running backs transferred. Just because, like, I feel like I don't know how we give everybody the reps they need in that room when you have. And obviously, I know that Kamari Moulton and I tried and heard some rumors of Terrell Washington might play a little bit of slot here and there. So maybe that's the way they find of using him. But like the top three for sure between LaShawn Williams, Caleb Johnson, and Jazz Patterson. I'm surprised one of those three did not look somewhere else. Just 'cause I don't know how you give all those guys their reps.
I agree. I mean, isn't that and I know they're dealing with the scholarship number issue, but don't you got to give Liddell Betts a big attaboy on that one? Like, I can't imagine, based on what I know about the collective and money available, I don't think any of those guys stuck around due to money. So the fact that they were able to hold on to all those guys, I mean, you named them, all those guys played. You got 5 guys that played snaps last year, and I'm not predicting that Xavier Williams or Brevin Dahl are going to play in year one, but I like them both. I like Liddell Betts, what he's doing with that running back room, and they can get a line that produces with some better play calling. You could see a really healthy run game start this year.
Also, the Reverend Dahl situation is weird with him breaking his leg. I don't know how much that affects of him maybe just sitting out a whole year and kind of just recovering from that broken leg. I think that's kind of interesting to know too. Obviously, if you need to go that deep, hopefully we don't have to get to 7, man. And I mean, I know last year we had a lot of injuries in that room, so hopefully we don't have to get down to that point where we have to get to that. But I'm hoping he can just kind of take a year, to recover from that injury and have his freshman year to be. But yeah, it was interesting to see everybody stay in that room. I think that was the most interesting thing from the offseason is who came back and kind of everybody still being in that room and nobody leaving at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Surprised. I would have not predicted that. I just, and here's the other thing about that. It's not like, I think the one thing you can take from that, at times there are certain positions on the field, and you know what I'm talking about when I say this, James, that, a majority of your guys are Midwest guys. They're Iowa guys, where they're talking about linebacker, guys like Kyler Fisher. Hey, if you're not playing, you're going to you're filling a role on special teams. It's your home. It's your hometown. Maybe it's up front. Maybe it's an offensive line. These guys are from Florida, Ohio.
Yeah.
Where's Kamari Moulton from?
Florida. He's from Florida too.
There you go. I mean, these guys are from all over the place. And Terrell Washington's a Texas kid. So I'm fascinated by that, and I'm anxious to see how Tim Lester uses some of these guys. You keep hearing about Terrell Washington's versatility, lining up in the slot. Get him out as a pass catcher, because you got all those tools in the toolbox. There's got to be some of your best players overall in one room.
For sure, and like you said with the other, like the Iowa kids, like like Quinn and like Kyler, like it was their dream. They talked about it before, like it was their dream to play at Iowa. So like for them, it's like different, I don't think they're really looking to go anywhere else because like as a kid, you dream of it. Like growing up in Iowa, a lot of times you dream of either playing for one school or the other, Iowa or Iowa State, right? If you're play sports, you dream of playing for one of those two teams. I think a lot of those guys like that, like Quinn, I think that probably part to do with his decision of like he dreamed of being an Iowa Hawkeye. His family grew up an Iowa family. Like he just wanted to be an Iowa Hawkeye, and I think that kind of helps those situations a little bit in those guys. But yeah, it's weird where they're all from and how they came back. But on the basketball realm, I'm going to say this: I hope we have a better year than last year, and what we bring in is going to be interesting and vicious to see. But hopefully, we can get those wins. And when's the last time we had 2 bye weeks in the season for football?
That's a question. I'm not a schedule geek. 2 bye weeks. Yeah, they get Saturday, September 28th off, and then November 16th off. Yeah, I mean, that's how the schedule shapes up because you start on August 31st and finish on November 29th. Yeah. So I guess is that a nation? Because they're not playing weeks. So week 0 would still be August 24th.
Yeah, week 0, you still get 2 bye weeks. I never knew that if you didn't have week 0, you get 2 bye weeks. But I guess maybe it just depends on how the schedule panned out.
So does that mean that week 0 people might get 3 byes?
I don't know how it's working. I don't know. We'll see. But there's not a lot of week 0 games this year. So,
well, when is there ever really a lot of week 0? Who plays week 0? Have we looked at this?
Some games I'm probably not interested in watching, but I probably watch because I haven't watched football in forever. So, but
let's see, week 0, 2024.
There's nobody. Really.
Let's see here. You have. How about this? Florida State, Georgia Tech. That's the game of the week.
Yeah, that's probably the only
Montana State Well, no, you get Montana State at New Mexico, and correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Carson May at New Mexico?
Yeah, I think that sounds right. I know Deuce Hogan's New Mexico State.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, you're right. I'm thinking Deuce. Deuce is at
Yes.
New Mexico State.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And then SMU is at Nevada. Delaware State at Hawaii. So that's a pretty, but I mean, again, you got a Florida State Georgia Tech game in Dublin. That should be fascinating to watch.
For sure. Yep. But it's interesting to see. I'm happy you're back. And are you going to media days or not?
I will be at Iowa Media Day. I'm not going to Big Ten Media Day.
Okay, yeah. Well, do you know when Big Ten Media Days is?
Where or when?
Well, do you know when it is? I know it's in Indy, but do you know when it is?
It's July 23rd through the 25th.
All right. It'll be interesting to see in my eyes, and obviously this means nothing because a lot of times they'll put us at, well, not as 18 teams, but a lot of times they'll put us at 9, 10 sometimes, and we'll finish third or fourth. But like it kind of be interesting to see how with a new OC what people kind of image us as, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because like we never really had this thing, so I kind of be interested to see what people image us as, but it doesn't matter to me because I know what this team should be, and I hope it's at worst it should be 9-3 at worst. But you never know what's gonna happen because
9-3 at worst.
at like I feel like
wow.
We shouldn't
9-3
lose.
That's a big statement. That's a
we
big statement.
we shouldn't lose, and by that schedule you shouldn't really lose 3 games. I mean, there's a chance they could because they do lose a lot of games that they shouldn't, but like there's a lot of games they shouldn't lose. There's a couple teams that's gonna be like Iowa State, obviously Ohio State, but like if our offense is better, we should. If we won 10 games with a bad offense and about the same defense, if we have just incompetent offense, we should be about the same. If that makes sense.
I agree. Now, somebody earlier in the chat made the comment. Let me see if I can find it here. I think I saved that comment. Yeah, here it is. Keep chopping. And I don't think keep chopping. I think as the logo shows, I don't think he's a Big Ten or an Iowa fan. He's a Big Ten fan. Says that looks like an 11-1 schedule. Iowa should easily make the playoff. Well, first of all, nothing's easy when it comes to football and making the playoff. And certainly this new Big Ten is not going to be easy. Yes, they avoid 4 of the top 5, what I think to be 4 of the top 5. Now, our predictions could be wrong. Maybe Maryland ascends into that group, or maybe UCLA or Washington end up in that group. Maybe Wisconsin takes a big step forward under Luke Fickell. 11-1. I mean, could I see them 11-1? Sure.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they're going to be underdogs against Ohio State. The other 11 games, you could argue Iowa has a chance to be favored in maybe all of those games, maybe.
There'll be a couple toss-ups. There'll be a couple toss-ups, and I feel like Wisconsin, like Iowa State. I feel like some of those games will probably be toss-ups. But
I think going to UCLA is going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know that Iowa is going to be favored by much out there. So, like, I 11-1 is possible, but you're talking about 11 games, several of which might be toss-ups. It's hard to predict 11-0 with those games. So, when you say 9-3 at worst, I think maybe it's more reasonable to say the floor should be set at 8-4.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that, but my thinking was just more. We had the worst offense in the nation last year, and we don't lose a lot of those guys on defense, and we won 10 games with the worst offense in the nation. And
I agree.
If they get competent at all, you shouldn't be much worse. That was the only thinking I have. Like,
yeah, I agree. I mean, no, I absolutely, and I think there's no reason to think. Cooper DeJean was phenomenal, and his absence can't be overstated. However, he is one guy. Iowa's had a lot of phenomenal All-Americans, Jack Campbell being another, and typically they bounce right back.
I mean, they have one in Jay Higgins who's an All-American right now. So
the difference there, and this, is Cooper DeJean affected the game in so many different ways.
Yeah. And also, and we said this earlier before I get off of him. Also, he was hurt a little bit last year, and we still won games. Even when he was hurt, he didn't make those. Some of those games he didn't impact. We still won. Obviously, some of them were closer than he won, like Nebraska, but we still managed to find ways to win, even without all that playmaking sometimes too. And that kind of gave me a little bit more of that confidence. Where it's like we still won the worst offense in the nations, but we still found ways to win, even without the Cooper DeJean playmaking that he always had.
So the question and then the answer there, James, is Iowa's knack at winning close games and finding ways to win, did it have anything to do with Brian Ferentz?
I don't think so. I think it had more to do with Phil Parker than it had to do with Brian Ferentz, because I feel like the defense when they needed to, they knew what they needed to do, and they went out and did it. I feel like the offense didn't do what they needed to do, if that makes sense. Like the defense, like, okay, we need to stop here to win the game, and they get that stop to win the game.
Yeah, so if it didn't have anything to do with Brian Ferentz, there's no reason to think they can't win close games still under Tim Lester's watch with the offense and potentially be in better positions deep in games, later in games because of a better offense. I get your line of reasoning.
For sure, but it'll be interesting, and let you get to the other callers, and I hope we do another one of these. It's fun always to talk about just the upcoming and what we kind of see and what we kind of predict. Obviously, everything's predictions though, because like you said, it's football, it's sports. You never know what could happen, and I didn't expect us to lose to Minnesota last year. And I know people have their own opinions on that, but in the record books, it's a loss, right? Unfortunately, right? And obviously, I always hope we don't have a game like that, but you never know. That's why you always gotta watch the game, and that's why you never can predict anything right.
Absolutely, sir. James, I'll be definitely back for a live edition of this show in late July. So we'll have more stuff in between now and then, but expect a live show like this one sometime around Big Ten Media Days.
That sounds good. Enjoy your night.
Thank you, sir. All right, Bill 38472. Sebastian Castro will shine this year. There's another guy I didn't mention. I mean, talk about a gem. He was going to be drafted. I mean, he was on draft board. So another guy, a potential All-American. What was he? Was he preseason third team by Athlon? I think that list came out last week. So yeah, he will definitely be of assistance at that cash position. Tanner, I think this whole college football season is going to be exciting, hoping for the best. Thank you for being here, Tanner, and sharing your thoughts. David, kind of the same thing as me. I say the Hawks should finish between 8-4, 10-2, with some tight games against ISU, Minnesota, Wisconsin, UCLA. Minnesota's down this year, though. I will say this. Not that Iowa couldn't go up there and lose, but I think Minnesota's going to be down. Possibility of 11-1? Sure. I'll take the ceiling higher to 11-1. Esther, I am doing good. Thank you for being here, Esther. Good to see your name in the chat. The number to call in, folks, as we head into the final 15 to 20 minutes, I think, of our plus show is 515-635-1601. We got about 1,000, wouldn't that be nice? 100 people watching right now. It's the off season, so appreciate all 100 of you being here and being sure you hit that like button, that thumbs up button below the video. We'll be right back. Quick break. We'll be back with our next caller. You're watching Hawkeye Hangout here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. We'll be right back. Straight from the man cave, Kinnick Under the Kitchen. Authentic, original player artwork is being drawn up for Hawkeye fans everywhere. Locally made prints of stars wearing the black and gold from the past, present, and future. How about current Hawkeye superstars Cooper DeJean and Torrey Taylor? Legends of the past like Jack Campbell, Spencer Lee, and Tim Dwight. Plus future phenoms like Aaron Graves. There are so many options available. They make great gifts, and your purchase benefits the Hawkeye athletes wearing the black and gold. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook or at Under the Kitchen's new website. That's underthekitchen.square.site. Again, that's underthekitchen.square.site. Check out Under the Kitchen today and get your authentic, original Hawkeye print. Got the opportunity to tour the man cave, Randy Engel down in Mitchellville here the other day. It was a pleasure to see Randy in person. He's been with us for a long, long time. Yes, Under the Kitchen over on Facebook and underthekitchen.square.site. It's SITE on the old browser. Check it out and support Hawkeye athletes and this show. Call-in number is on the screen. We're going to go to our phone line in just a second. But before we do that, we've got a couple of comments in the chat. Kyle says he's worried about the Big Red. It'll be interesting to see what they look like this year. Absolutely. They continue to recruit at a really high level. And you'd have to think, I'm not, I say, a fan of Matt Rule, but I'm someone who, when they hired him, I thought that's a good hire. And year two makes a world of difference. Hey, Luke Fickell, people aren't talking about Wisconsin. There's no reason to think that they can't take a big step forward. I know they lost some guys, Braylon Allen being one, but there's no reason to think they can't take a step forward as well. T. Hink says, are there any football games on Peacock this year? I would assume so. I'm not a TV guy. Remember last year was the crossover year, so you had the CBS and the SEC were still on the last leg of their contract, their deal. So I think that changes this year, which would make me think less possibility of streaming only games. I stream everything anyway, so I don't really care. But that's what I'm aware of. Or a couple other comments here. Tanner says, "Are you going to any games this year?" I always go to at least a game or two. Now with this post game show, it does make things a little trickier. But yes, I'll be in Kinnick. We'll be in Kinnick for Media Day. We'll be there the next day for Kids Day in early to mid August. So Mitch, thank you for being here. Says he can't wait for the Hawkeye season to start. We'll be watching from Kansas City. As I mentioned, Esther, thank you for being here. Let's see. Murph wants to know, more likely to retire at year's end, Kirk or Fran? That one's easy for me. I'm going Fran. I almost said Kirk. I'm going Fran all the way on that one. Would I be shocked with either? Probably not. But I've talked openly about how I think things are shaping up for Fran right now more so than Kirk. I think Kirk had an excellent opportunity to leave this past year. You know, going 10-2 with an abysmal offense, with, you know, your son's being let go. I think he wants to be here for a while. Now, you got a contract through 2029. I'm not saying he's going to live out the contract, but I do think he'll be here longer than Fran. And he's older than Fran, but I just think with the situation with Fran, his daughter, I think Fran's daughter is in her final year of, is it? Well, let's go to our basketball guy. We got a basketball guy waiting in the queue. Tony! Tony, you know about Fran's family. Tell us about Fran's family. You stalk him on Facebook, don't you?
I have no idea about his daughter. I know his daughters told him to step up his sneaker game. I know that much. That's the only thing I know about his daughter. Was his daughters.
I was thinking, how many kids does he have? He's got.
I think he has 4. The three boys.
Okay.
The girl. Yeah.
No, like. Oh, he's only okay. Now I'm confused. I thought one of his daughters is she maybe? Let's see. She was at Villanova at one point. When she must have transferred to Iowa at some point. I was thinking that his daughter was at Nova at one point. I could be off on that.
She may have. Go ahead.
What I've heard is that it sounds like she's whatever I don't think she's in high school. She's going to be done after this year. And so if she leaves, Patrick's gone, Connor's gallivanting with a superstar, a world star over in Feverville, that why would Fran stick around when Jack's going to be playing somewhere else? That has been the consensus. But who knows?
I personally think he sees out this sophomore class. The only way I could see him, I think, in my opinion, leave after this year is if they do get to the second weekend monkey off the back. I think that would be the perfect time to ride off into the sunset. I think if that happens any time in the next year or two, he probably will. But I really think he's committed to this class of sophomores they have, especially with getting Traore. You know, you got Seydu, you got Laji, you got Brock, you got Price, and you got Owen. And I think all 5 of those are probably – that's a good class to ride off into their senior year and go from there.
Well, first of all, I think got a chance to be pretty good this year. I don't know. You know, we've said that before, and then they bow out.
Yep.
You know, week first weekend. I mean, I'm not going to be sitting here making any predictions for the Sweet 16 monkey to jump off the Iowa back. Tony,
I'm not making that. I'm not saying I'm making that prediction either. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
No, I think you and I are on the same page, though. They got a chance to make the tournament. I think they should.
Yeah.
Shouldn't they make the tournament this year? Like,
yes.
There's not any like, well, they could. No, they should. If they don't.
Yeah, I think it's a disappointing year. Yes.
It's a disappointing year, and I think you start talking about,
yep.
Okay, is Fran on the hot seat at that point?
Yes. I agree.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. I just had one quick thing, and then I'll address. T. Hank asked me. I'm fine. I didn't get the rain as bad. That was more because I'm in Sioux Falls. We got about 7-8 inches in that big storm. It was 15 inches, about 30 minutes south of us. My quick question I wanted to get Alan was actually football related. I know last year a lot of talk was made about the win total at 7.5. this year the win total is at 7.5. Not saying you're going to give free gambling advice, but which one do you feel is more confident? And then I'll log off. I mean, obviously last year's happened, but rewind going into both off seasons, which 7.5 did you feel more confident in happening? And then I'll listen, and that's all.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Last year's. I mean, I think both of them are low, and I will never bet on any sporting event. Make that clear. But as it relates to how many games I'm predicting Iowa to win, I just said earlier that I think 8-4 should be the reasonable floor. So if that's the floor, then yeah, definitely 7-5 is not shooting very high. Last year was the same thing. The schedule was just so much easier in some regards, but I don't think we didn't know what Washington was going to look like. We didn't know Kalen DeBoer was going to take the job at Alabama. We didn't know Chip Kelly was going to leave UCLA. So those two coaching changes, I think, really affected how we view those two West Coast teams. And we also didn't know the schedule. Like at this point last year, we didn't know exactly what next year's schedule would look like. So 7-5 is low for each season. And I said that a year ago at this time. I'll say it for this year. I think if Iowa goes 7-5, major disappointment. And I get the total is 7.5, right? So, but again, I think 8-4 is the floor, should be the floor for this team based on what they return. And they return a ton. I mean, what did I see? They were like top 10 in the country in returning production. That's scary if you're some of those teams on this schedule, because, you know, all the turnover in college football, and, you know, you have Brian leaving, and yet Iowa still is keeping all their experienced guys. And Cooper DeJean, in some regards, wanted to come back. Imagine if he'd be back. I know that we don't get that, but definitely have confidence in 8-4 or better. Kelvin wants to know about Christian Hudson, the big defensive tackle, possibly committing on the 6th. Yes, I did see something. I think he tweeted that out. I don't know. I don't know whether he's leaning Iowa or not. He's not a kid I've had any contact with. Obviously, he's a 4-star kid. They won him. He was on campus here a couple weeks ago, but it'd be a great get if they could land him. Tacoon says, have you noticed people are predicting Iowa losing to UCLA? I don't really read into too many of those predictions. But again, I don't think that's I could see it being a toss-up game. I mean, going on the road to Pasadena, great weather out there, but I wouldn't be shocked if Iowa loses that game. I just think of the 4 West Coast teams, if you got to play 2 of them, which you do right now, I'm taking UCLA and Washington this year over USC or Oregon. So that's my perspective. I do think Iowa should probably be favored by a point or 2 at this point in the prediction realm, but I have not been reading too many predictions, nor do I ever. Yeah, we'll see what that game should be interesting. And that one is scheduled for November? In November 8th. So that's a nice trip out to Southern California late in the year. Bill wants to know about the implementation of Tim Lester's offense. Yeah, he's positive about it. I'm positive about it. I spoke earlier on that. Pete, any guesses for who replaces Kirk? That's a big question, Pete. I've talked about some names. Certainly what Tim Lester does is going to be a factor, because if Phil doesn't want the job, has no interest in the job, then, you know, if Kirk retires in 3 years and the offense is going like this, then Tim Lester would be an obvious candidate. I still think Brett Bielema has to be on the list, whether you like what he's doing in Illinois right now or not. Last year was a bit of a disappointment. I think he's on the list. You have what's going on with the Stoops brothers. You've got Mark changing jobs. You've got Bob still kind of lingering around the sport, but still technically retired. So those are some names to watch for. I don't think Jay Norvell is on the list. I don't think LeVar Woods is on the list. No offense to LeVar. I just don't think you hire a guy without defensive or offensive play calling experience. So if he goes somewhere else and gets that, then great. But I think he would have some dues to pay. The number one guy on my list would still be Phil Parker, and I'd make him turn me down when that day comes. So who knows if he'd take the job or not. Jared says, are you going to buy NCAA 25 when it comes out? Probably. I'm not a big video gamer, but I do have a game system, Jared. I probably will buy it. It seems to be the cat's bananas for fans out there, so I'll probably buy it. Not to say I'm going to be playing it all the time, but I'm sure I will buy it. Kyle says, when do you think, is it pronounced IOC? I always forget how to pronounce the youngest Epinessa's name. When will he decide? I talked with Tom Caker to HawkeyeReport.com. I don't think he minds me repeating this. He has been in contact with that camp, and it sounds like we're going to get a decision here this month. Sounds like. Now, that's not coming from Tom. I'm not quoting Tom, but based on what I gathered from Tom, it sounded to me like maybe this month. And then the number one kicker in the country, who is also on campus here during that same weekend, he is set to announce at the latest early August. So we'll get some decisions here well before the season starts. Pete says, how will the Hawks fare when they play games in the West Coast? Not a very good record out there. Again, schedule shapes up. Get a couple of games that are the lesser of the difficulties, I guess. So, yeah, they've not played great out there. Certainly didn't play well at the Rose Bowl. But that's, these are different teams. I hope, this is every year now. You're going to go to the West Coast every year. So hopefully Iowa takes a better approach to that and can perform better in those situations. Let's go back to our call-in line here at Hawkeye Hangout from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey, this is John.
Hey, John. Appreciate you being patient, sir. Good to hear your voice.
Oh, thank you. You too. With the offensive coordinator being able to talk to the quarterback directly into his helmet now, do you think that they would have a chance once the defense gets up to the line to have time to call an audible or maybe set up a keyword if somebody's breaking loose on the backside that the quarterback can't see to let them know somebody's coming?
That's a great question, John. I don't know. And I need to look into first of all, the implementation of that rule, how that's going to, from a logistics standpoint, or is it just an unlimited mic? Like, can you, I mean, if it's unlimited mic access there, can a quarterback talk to the coordinator during the course of a play? I mean, I would think that would be rather disruptive, but I just don't know the ins and outs of that rule. It'd be a better question for Tim Lester when we get him in August. But that's a great question. The good news is, say what you want about Cade McNamara's health, and frankly, Brendan Sullivan. He's got the experience as well. When you have two guys who have Big Ten level experience, I think Lester is going to be that's going to be a learning curve that is not as extreme. Even though he's implementing a new system, I would think he's going to be, by the time we hit late August, early September, comfortable relying on his guys to go to the line of scrimmage and make those changes. And they have not been comfortable with that. I mean, say what you want about Spencer Petras. He was an older guy, and I still wasn't comfortable. I don't think Iowa was. I don't think they will say what they want to say, but I don't think Brian Kirk and those guys were ever comfortable with Spencer Petras or Deacon Hill making changes at the line of scrimmage. We saw Nate Stanley make some changes here and there, but it's been a while since they've had somebody they're comfortable with doing that. And I think you're going to see more of an endorsement from Kirk and Tim with whoever's quarterbacking this offense, given the experience there.
Well, before Cade got hurt, a reporter asked him a question about a different play, and he said, you'll have to ask the guy who's calling the plays. And at that time, it made me wonder if they took the audible away from the quarterbacks.
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think you take – I mean, Cade McNamara was not going to come to Iowa and never have the ability to that would just be stupid if your quarterback, who's a 3-4 year veteran, does not have the ability, is not given the option to a run or whatever the case may be. So I don't think that's what that meant, but I do think the level of flexibility and level of confidence has lacked, and so hopefully this is partly a result of the offensive coordinator change. You're going to see, paired with the experience at quarterback, you're going to see guys that have the ability to not just audible into one or two other plays, but I don't want to say a bevy of plays, but to where you're not. It seems like every time we watch Iowa audible into anything, it's always what do we always see Iowa audible into, John?
A run?
Yeah, it's a run up the middle, right? I mean, let's not confuse it. It's a run up the middle. So, so anyways, yeah, I would hope they're going to see a good level of flexibility there, but that's a great question. I got a laundry list of questions that I don't know if I'll get to all of them, but I can't wait for media day in August to be able to talk to Coach Lester. And by the way, King Davis 7374 says in the chat that the mic is cut off during the play, so that doesn't really answer. I'm assuming that would mean, if that's the case, that he could give last second direction to his quarterback at the line of scrimmage. But again, I don't know that.
I'm curious this season on the men's basketball team to see what Fran's rotations look like without a McCaffrey playing for 30 minutes.
Yeah. And how about the rotation with several guys who are like I want to say the number one trait is athleticism, but like from Seydou Traore to Laji Dembele to this freshman from NBA Academy, Chris Tajo, they got a level of athleticism, even though they lost Tony Perkins that maybe they haven't had in a while. So I agree. I think rotation will be a fascinating thing, not just because of Patrick leaving, but there's a lot of new faces there.
Yeah, there is. Did you happen to get a chance to listen to Taylor McCabe's interview with Tom Kakert?
I did not. I didn't even know Tom talked to Taylor. Was that recent?
A couple weeks ago, maybe.
Okay.
It was interesting. She said she thought about leaving after this last season. Okay. And Lisa's always, and Jan are always saying everybody matters. She said her first year there, nobody hardly talked to her. She didn't know how she was doing, if she was doing good, doing bad, or what. But so I just found it interesting.
I'll have to give that a listen. Yeah, I had talked to Taylor about getting her on this show. We'll have to maybe pursue that here. She's going to be an interesting part of that team because, for obvious reasons, they don't have somebody who they can rely on for the level of the volume of offensive production. Obviously, Lucy Olson's coming in and is going to be able to put up numbers, but she's not Caitlin Clark. She shouldn't be compared to Caitlin Clark. They need people who can be a little bit more consistent from outside from three, and they've relied a lot on Gabby Marshall. She, of course, is no longer here. But like if you had put Gabby Marshall on any other team other than one with Caitlin Clark, no offense to Gabby Marshall, but I don't think anybody would view Gabby Marshall in the same light. So, yeah, I agree. She's going to have to step up big. It's good that they held on to her because her ability to make, especially corner threes, is going to be, I think, crucial. Hopefully they can play a little bit more high-low this year, assuming somebody else other than Hannah Stolke develops into a prototypical big, a prototypical 5. That will help people like Taylor.
At the interview that Ava Hayden was turning heads in practice, that she's doing some things they hadn't seen in a while.
Good. Exactly what they need. Either Ava or Addison. Hopefully those two will sharpening iron there. They both need to get better. Or I mean, no offense. Ava just got here, but I mean, Addison needs to get better, and Ava, she's got to be ready to play sooner rather than later.
Did it seem like to you last year or in the last couple of years that I've always been a big Taylor McCabe fan, but she seems like she gets lost at times during the game. Does it seem that way to you?
Yes. And some of that might be, John, if she felt like she didn't. When you don't feel like, this is something I didn't play high major college basketball, but I can still say this with confidence. When you don't feel like your teammates or your coaches trust you, it's going to affect how you play. It's going to affect how you move. It's going to affect your level of aggression. It's going to affect everything. And we always talk about how these players, Fran gives his guys the green light. Caitlin had the green light from Lisa. That's why they're so aggressive. That's why Peyton Sanford's jacking up shots from all over the court. Taylor I agree. She's been a little hesitant. I think I know exactly what you're talking about with her movement. Just looks a little unsure of herself at times. Hopefully that changes this year. It's going to be a different team. I mean, different. Hey, 2 of the top 3 coaches are gone. And your top 3 players from last year are gone. So different team. I'm glad Taylor stuck it out. I'm anxious to see what she can do.
She said She said in the interview, in just a straight up 3-point shot, she could beat Caitlin Clark.
Yeah. Well, she's an all-time leading 3-point maker in Nebraska high school history. So I'm not going to argue it. Caitlin's volume is pretty high there. She's a phenomenal shooter, but 3-point contest, I don't know.
I'm hoping it works out for her this year.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure to hear from John. Always great to hear from our regular callers. It had been a while again since we've had one of these call-in shows, so this has been fun. And yes, I knew we weren't going to get to everything, but it's been a nice flair or flavor of different topics. And hey, football's back in media days in 2 weeks. 3 weeks. I'm sorry, 3 weeks. 3 weeks, July 23rd. So 3 weeks from tomorrow. 3 weeks from tomorrow. So, Barbara, have there been any rumors about Caleb Brown's punishment or his legal case? Haven't seen anything other than people speculating. You know, I could probably find something for that. I have not been following anything. Iowa has not released anything else. Let's see if I can find the latest on the legal side of the Caleb Brown situation here. Maybe not. All right. Caleb Brown. All right. Looks like the latest. So he's been charged, as we mentioned on that recent video. He was charged back about a week ago with operating while under the influence. It was his first offense. Hopefully his last. Possession of fictitious ID, which is a serious misdemeanor. Both of those charges are misdemeanors, serious misdemeanors. As it relates to the adjudication, it appears that we have not gotten an update. Looks like there was a motion made to withdraw counsel on Friday. So I am assuming that means that there's a change for Caleb Brown as it relates to his representation in court. I have not looked at the criminal complaints associated with that incident. I know a lot of news outlets have written about it, but again, assuming there's nothing that we don't know about, expect one game. Expect him to miss one game. And Pisgah Gravel Project, has anyone have any info on Cade? Is he 100% better than September last year? He played in that NIL softball, baseball event, whatever that was the other day. So he looked pretty good there. I wouldn't think they'd send him out there in front of everybody there and on the diamond if he wasn't 100%. But, you know, once you tear your ACL, start having these recurring injuries, they say you're never the same. I mean, we can name a laundry list of athletes who have proven that to be the case. One being Klay Thompson, who the Mavs just acquired today. Boogie Cousins from Kentucky. He was phenomenal his first few years in the league. Injuries really derailed him. I mean, just go down the list. You could be here all day talking about players that suffered a serious injury and just were never the same even when they healed. So you hope that's not the case. Takoon says that there was a short Tim Lester interview posted today. It sounded as though Cade has not really been running drills, but has been right next to Lester, acting like an assistant coach. Well, he better be getting a little bit more than assistant coaching experience with Tim Lester. So let's hope that is going to change here in the coming days. All right, folks. I think that is all she wrote for this evening. If you are new here and have not subscribed, you're a Hawkeye fan, do that. Hit that like button as well. Thumbs up right below the video. If you're interested in sponsoring the channel, I'll throw the email down there, from the eye of the storm at outlook.com. You can also find me by just typing in info@fromthehawkeyeofthestorm.com. That's pretty simple as well. But there's the email across the bottom. Please share the show out on social media. Prime Day is coming up in, July 16th, 17th. You can shop with us. Link in the description. Save money, help the show, all of the above. Great opportunity to support and make your Amazon Prime purchases. I'll be back with Mark Rogers. This week we are not going live Tuesday. I've got some family arrangements already in place, so we'll be on the air on Wednesday, 4 p.m. Central Time Wednesday. Myself and Mark Rogers over at the Voice of College Football, Iowa Football, at the Voice of College Football. If you are interested, also new merchandise always dropping over it from the Hawkeye of the Storm, and some new products just dropped here today, actually, on the merch store. You can check out all of those ways to support the show by means of the description. You can also donate in the description below. Appreciate everybody being here, folks. It's been a fun hour and a half. More content coming, more recruiting videos, and the like. We'll talk to you next time.